It is time for me to finally work on finishing this drywall project. I am going to be doing the taping and texturing myself. I figure if I can put the drywall up on the walls, I'm certainly capable of doing the taping and texturing. Again, I've never done it before, but I had never hung drywall before, so the goal is ultimately pretty straightforward. All I need to do is make that drywall over there look like this. Some sort of finished texture, so where you can't see the seams between the sheets and all of the screw holes. That is the objective, and I think I can do it. So the first step is going to be taping. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape all of these joints, and then I'll be ready to start putting what is called all-purpose joint compound. Oh, and by the way, I got my paint too. So after I finish texturing the drywall, I'm going to prime and then paint the walls too. So big project here. Let's get it started. Hurry, I can still make shine. So I was told by the YouTube experts to add some water to this. This looks more runny than the videos that I was seeing, so. But I don't think it would hurt to add some water like I'm doing. Didn't take much at all. Man, I'm nervous about this. I just want this to look good. I want to do a good job. And it's just a complete mystery how this is gonna go, so we'll see. Okay, my initial feeling after doing this first line is that this is not gonna be so bad. I think everything's gonna turn out okay. This is actually kind of soothing. Make no mistake, I would not want to do this every day for the rest of my life as an occupation, but I don't think I'm gonna have such a bad time doing this here today. Crank some good tunes and just really take my time. Get the consistency right every time I put it in this tray and stay positive. And I think we'll be okay. Here comes the first corner. We'll see how this goes. I definitely think I should have added more mud on the first layer, but I'll do that on this next corner. By the time I finish this, I'll have figured everything out. I've finished the first layer of mud here on the walls and the ceiling. Tomorrow I'll put the second layer on. I think this needs to dry overnight. I'm satisfied with this so far. I think everything's gonna turn out okay because there's a lot of room for error here. Meaning that even if I didn't do everything perfect, there's gonna be another layer on top of that, and then there's gonna be a texture on top of that. So I think by the time this is completely done, it'll be really hard to, or hopefully impossible to see where the seams are on the screws. I think it's gonna turn out okay. Oh, that can make me smile down the road. Down, down, down. This will be my texture tool. And this is going to be the thing that I hold and put my mud on. Stick it on there, and then I'll tap on it. And then I'll put that on the wall. We'll see how this goes. I'm gonna start in this bottom corner of the back of the room. If it's bad to start with, less people will see this than elsewhere. All right, that's okay. Okay, there's no going back now, but it's definitely got a texture to it now. I like it. I think it looks pretty good. So to my surprise, I used this entire bucket of mud. So I had to go get this other one here from Home Depot this morning so that I could continue to make progress on this project. That first bucket allowed me to cover all of the joints and do this single layer of texture, minus this wall over here, which is not done yet. So I'm gonna finish applying the first layer of texture on that wall, and then I'll go back and I'm gonna do a second layer of texture, which I was not planning on doing, but I really think it's gonna make a big difference in the finished product. Because right now, I think there's just, I don't know, I'm afraid if I put a layer of paint on here, you're still gonna be able to see these joints, and there's just not enough of the texture on there. My legs are screaming at me and my shoulders because standing on that ladder is getting really old, and doing all that work above my head, my shoulders are just dead. But I want to be happy with this when it's all said and done, so gotta do what I gotta do here. And I can't let my desire to just be done override my desire to have a quality finished product when I'm done. But I must say, this method of texture has worked pretty well. I like that first layer, and my handy dandy little tool here has worked great. So here's that first layer of texture. It's pretty light. You can see the gray of the drywall behind there. It's just a light dabbing. And this is the second layer. I went really heavy with it. You can see how much is sticking out. I'm gonna wait for that to dry a little bit while I work on the rest of the room. By the time I get over there, it'll be harder, and then I'm gonna come back with a flat surface and I'm gonna knock down all those spiky little points like that. So that's what the first layer looks like. And I'll take a dab off my platform and do that. And that's the second layer. All right, second layer of texture is done on all of the walls, not the ceiling yet. This thing is so weighed down and heavy now, I'm gonna have to create a new one for the ceiling because it's just too difficult to do in the ceiling. It wants to fall down. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. That's a wrap, folks, for the texture. Holy cow. So I used almost this entire second bucket here to put that last layer of texture on there. Put it on thick. Woo. So here's the door. See how heavy that texture is? It's sticking up quite a bit. So on that other wall over there, this far wall here, this has, okay, I think that's good. It's hard-ish. So what I'm gonna try and do, let's see what happens. I have this idea of getting this wet, this little piece of foam here, getting it wet and going like that. See, the problem with leaving a really heavy texture like that on the walls is that dust and stuff wants to collect on vertical spaces that have some sort of a shelf, like dirt and dust and all kinds of stuff wants to stick to that. So I think I should flatten it out. I think it's working great. I think I need to wait a little bit longer. You can see how it's kind of knocking that down. Those points on there. I'm just gonna go along and do that. Okay, I decided it's best to spray water directly on the walls and then go over it with this to knock down all the texture on the walls, not the ceiling. So here's that texture before. I'm gonna wet it down right there. Grab my tool. And I'm not pressing all the way flat. I'm like tipping it out a little bit so it catches the edge like that. And just see that? Watch. See how all these are pointy like that? When I go over it with points, flatten out. Well, that's it for the texturing of this job. Man, what an accomplishment. What a feeling of accomplishment when you do something for yourself, by yourself, having never done it before. Like I said at the beginning, I was a little scared and nervous about doing this, but the more and more I try things like this and the finished product ends up being something that I'm happy with, the more I feel confidence in myself to continue to try new things and accomplish them. Because ultimately at the end of the day, definitely when it comes to construction things, when other human beings do it, they move their hands, they move their legs, and they use certain tools in a specific way. And yes, when you do it over and over and over, you become an expert and you do a very good job, a much better job than I did here, but you can still do things for yourself and do a good job. Now, we'll see what it looks like after I paint it. I think you'll still be able to see the joints, or I'll notice all the little imperfections and the tiny little imperfections everywhere because, well, I did it and they'll stick out to me like a sore thumb. But I was thinking back to something that my mom and my stepdad told me. You know, they taught me almost everything I know about construction and stuff like this. And my mom is very much a perfectionist like me. She tries to do her very, very best and is meticulous, very detail oriented. My stepdad, less of a perfectionist, but still he does a very good job on the things that he does. And when you combine their forces, they are an incredible team. So my mom is like I said, very detail oriented and stepdad less so. So they can butt heads, and because they taught me what I know, I butt heads with myself and like, okay, this has got to be perfect. But then the Tim part of my brain is like, he says at the end of the project, nobody's going to notice all those little things that you're being so particular about, like, this has to be perfect, or at the end, you're going to notice it. A lot of projects that we've worked on, okay, it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to finish it. We're going to do our best, and then we're going to move on to the next step, and we're going to do our best on the next step, and then we're going to do our best on the next step after that. And when the job is all said and done, once you get the drywall hung, just because the two pieces don't join perfectly, you can try your best to correct for that during the taping process. And if the taping isn't perfect, you can try and correct for that during the texture process. And if the texture isn't perfect, it will be covered up by the primer and the paint. And when all is said and done, nobody will ever notice those things. You're the only one that will ever notice it. And if somebody else does notice it and they point it out, they're going to be like, hey, at least they tried. At least they did it for themselves. And the person who's going to notice that is the professional who does it all the time, who knows all of the ways to avoid those mistakes, but they're not going to be judgmental because they understand the difficulty of it. And it's like, hey, this person tried and they did their best and looks pretty darn good for somebody who had never done it before and tried it for the first time. So that is what's going through my mind right now. And I just felt like sharing that. So be not afraid to try things for yourself. This is becoming a common theme on this channel. So this texture is pretty deep. I got to go back and make sure I'm getting in all the little cracks and crevices and covering that drywall behind the texture. But that's the primer right there. So I got a layer of primer on everything with the roller. Now I need to go back on this wall with a paintbrush and go through all of those grooves, and then any other spot that I couldn't get with the roller, go back with the paintbrush. Finish the primer. By the time I finish that, it'll be dry. I'll be ready for paint. That's a wrap for the primer. Every single wall and the ceiling has a coat of primer on it now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do all that one more time. Everything I just did with the paintbrush in between these grooves, with the roller on all the walls. I gotta do it one more time with the actual paint. But the good news is, the gentleman that helped me at Home Depot, he nailed it right there. That's how much primer I have left. Hopefully I will have enough paint. Gonna wash off the brush and the roller and do this paint. Oh man, so close to being done with this part of the project. My legs, man, my legs from being up on that ladder and just being on my feet for this long is, my feet are killing. One can down of the paint on to can number 2. All right, this is the final paint of the textured walls. And it's been hard to tell what spots I've hit and which ones I haven't, because the color of this paint is so similar to the primer underneath it. So I've basically just been looking for the spots that are glossy looking and that means I got it covered. So almost done, just one more wall to go over there, but I'm gonna finish strong. Finish strong, let's go. Oh. The primer on this wall is taking a really long time to dry, so I'm gonna take this stuff off the windows finally, and I'm gonna open up the windows and let some air in here. I was hesitant to open things up in here because it's like 85 degrees outside right now, and it's nice and cool in here, but I really need to stop breathing paint fumes and air out this room so that wall can dry. That's what you get when you let your heart run. You wanna be like that. Waste your time on me. Oh my gosh, I'm about to roll my final wall. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm almost done. Just doing the finishing touches now, making sure I didn't miss any spots. Man, I am so tired. This literally took me all day. I started in the morning when it was dark. I woke up really, really early because I just was so eager to get this done, and it literally took me from dark to dark. Oh my goodness. But when I wake up in the morning, paint will be dry and it'll be done. And I'm gonna be so happy. Oh. Well, that is a wrap for the taping and texturing and painting part of this new room project at the cabin here. Next up is going to be installing this flooring and putting trim around these openings and around the windows, and then wiring up the electrical outlets and these lights and the switch. I really, really appreciate your viewership, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks. Oh, yes. Oh. This is kombucha, by the way. I don't drink alcohol.